Right. So, like I said, tonight, I'm really looking forward to tonight. And we are starting on a very high note. We are starting on a high note because I think I'm going to show a video that I feel speaks very strongly to the theme of tonight, that it's a living testament to a real life evidence that the things that I'm talking about tonight actually work. I will leave you to I'll leave it to you after I've shown the video. But really, I'm hoping and expecting that by God's grace that it will be a transformational experience that will really be able to look at ourselves and really, okay, good, and really make some changes that can then be generational. That's my expectation. Uh, so that's my expectation tonight. Okay, so whilst we are settling in, I'm just going to share my slides. And for all everyone who is just joining us, please just feel free to tell us where you've joined us from and what you're expecting from tonight. Okay, can everyone see my slides? Please just indicate. I believe that everyone can hear me as well. Yeah. Okay, good. So it looks like people. Right. So this is what we are doing tonight. We're building world-class self-esteem. And like I said, we are going to start with a video. But before then, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Dr. T. Ayodele Ajayi, and those are the things I do. But I'm also the convener of the Tripartite Care Emotional Wellbeing Hub, and we've been operating for the last 4 years, thereabout. We started during the COVID-19 lockdown, and soon after then, we started hosting um, regular monthly meetings. So these monthly meetings have been going on consistently now for about 3.5 years or so. Yeah, nearing 4 years. However, I also have a number of other team members. Some of them are on the panel with me already. We've got Femiola Inka, we've got Covenant Fashino, who is our social media director and is doing a good job. So if you notice that our Instagram presence has sort of changed, that's all the effort from Covenant. We've also got Dr. Dokas Awolaran, who is also a psychiatrist. We've got Bonkadeba, we've got B. Ajayi, my dear daughter. We've got Jemima Sholadoye, also another dear daughter by family. And Jemima is a qualified doctor. Buyukumi is soon going to be a well-being practitioner, psychological well-being practitioner. So we've got quite a lot of experienced and eminent and able people in the team. We've also got my dear daughter, Araoluwa Ajayi, who who is the technical advisor and the cybersecurity person who makes sure that we don't get a cyber attack during these meetings. Okay. So in terms of my personal profile, I've been blessed to both be a psychiatrist, a fellow of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and also a psychiatric expert witness to the courts. I also sit on the pastoral team of the branch of the New Covenant Church that I attend, and my remit is for mental health, for the youth church, and also for one of our community projects. And public mental health, as everybody knows, is something that I'm passionate about. I've had the blessing and the privilege of featuring on the BBC, featuring in the Office of Health Improvement and Disparity campaigns for mental health as the spokesman to the Black community. And I've also had the privilege of writing on public mental health over the last 4 years. There are a number of publications where I'm a regular columnist. One of them is the Keep the Faith magazine. And also I've enjoyed a lot of volunteering work. So I sit on a number of boards, chair a number of them. And that's a bit about me, really. So today is really about education. It's about exchanging ideas. It's not by any means a personal consultation. It's maybe a bit of a coaching session, but it's not by any means a personal consultation. So if there are people on the call who really feel that they need a personal consultation, I will suggest that you speak to the main care provider, either your GP or your family doctor, or the person who takes responsibility for your care. It could also be the person who delivers your psychiatric care. Today, we are going to be doing a recording. We're already recording, and thankfully, it's a webinar, so we don't have to worry about people feeling that they are going to be featured on the video. So we don't now also need to worry about muting and unmuting again. So I'm expecting that it's going to be a lot smoother experience. And this video recording is then going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Tripart Care. So if you go on YouTube and you check us out, Tripart Care, we've got this is going to be the 90th video that will be uploaded there. Actually, probably, yeah, it's going to be the 90th video. And we keep updating it with, and then you can also look at our Instagram page. It's also by the same name, Tripart Care. And on Instagram, I am So, right. So I'm just going to change slides now. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share a video. Like I said, this video really attests to some of the things I'm going to be talking about today. And I think it just shows the fact that these things work and that they can be transformational. So I'm going to show a YouTube video, and this video is actually from the Tripart Care Hub. Will I just confirm everyone can hear that and see it?
Thank you to David and his team. And I look at this, I go, how much work goes into something like this? And I don't know about you, but as I kept seeing the WhatsApp messages come out, I thought, wow, a lot of hard preparations going into this. So thank you very much indeed. So I'm Donovan Palmer. I'm the CEO of Mission Aviation Fellowship. Following on with Carl, being London City Mission being so much older, we feel young, only celebrating our 80th anniversary this year. And just a bit of trivia, just to bring it a bit closer to home. How many of you know where Croydon Airport is? Right over there. It started right there. Two ARF pilots decided to use their skills to launch Mission Aviation Fellowship. They took off and flew down to Africa. They didn't know where they were going to exactly go as a survey mission. This is back before there was good aeronautical charts in the entire world. And sometimes, if you read the book that followed on many years later called Hope Has Wings, they didn't know exactly where they were going to land. And that's not something we would really appreciate right now, would we? But that was the commitment and the tenacity of these pioneers. Jack Hemming, one of our founders, was 102 last year. I asked him, I said, did you think that this would grow into something as big as it is? It's now over 120 aircraft, flying in 30 nations. It's believed to be the world's largest Christian humanitarian air operation in the world. And when you hear stuff like that, you can only go to the song "Great Is Thy Faithfulness." Amen. And so I asked Jack. I said, "Did you ever think this would grow into something this big? When you took that first flight?" And he said, "No, we just felt God urging us to do something, and we did it." And I think it should be an encouragement as we're celebrating these awards tonight that God may be prompting something on your heart. You haven't a clue, but it might do. And whether you see it in this life or the life to come, we spend that wonderful time in eternity with God. We will see the fullness of what He has done. Amen? There is a flight simulator out here, and so if you have a chance, do take a shot at it. We will keep it secret here. What happened happens at the Minister's Appreciation Ball. Stay at the Minister's Appreciation Ball. If you crash it, there's an ocean. So this award I'm really passionate about. Medical missions is something that's extremely close to our hearts. We do a lot of medical evacuations. We fly a lot of doctors and nurses. And so this award is the Outstanding Contribution Award for Medical Mission to Dr. T. Ayodele Ajayi. Am I saying that right? Ajayi.
I'm not so sure where to start from, but I'm really, I'm in a state of shock. Yeah, thank you, Reverend David. I came here tonight just wanting to network with everyone, have a good time, and yeah, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. Yeah, I think this plaque is a testament to how far we've come as a church in terms of caring for the spirit, the soul, and the body. I really believe in my heart that the solution, at least to the mental crisis that is going on in the world, currently lies in church for several reasons. And I want to say thank you to Reverend David again, but also thank you to every minister in the house who have opened up their podiums, their platforms to people like myself to just share the message that God has put on our hearts. I think the reason why this is going on is because we've had a change of attitude, and we are beginning to embrace that God cares for our spirit, our souls, and our body. And I think it's particularly exceptional for me this evening that my pastor and his wife, who have actually supported everything I've done, Reverend and Reverend Sumisha, they are here tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm just going to stop that. Right. Okay. So I was between two opinions about showing that video or not, but I decided I was going to show it anyway because I think it just paints a picture of the transformational work for me personally. But I also do think it's a community win. I think it's a community win for Tripartite Care, where soon after during the lockdown, I wouldn't particularly say that we knew where this was going to lead to. But over the last 3 years, the impact has certainly been phenomenal. I mean, from where I sit and from what I hear, and from the type of messages that feedback, and from what other people say, I'm grateful to God that we're where we are. But also, I also want to remember that that's been a journey for Tripartite Care, but a journey personally for me as well, from where I was a very timid person who wasn't really very confident, who really would not say that my self-worth was a lot to write home about, to where I am now. And so some of the things I'm going to share tonight are some of the things that I've applied in my own life, and I can see that it works. I think I'm in a position to be able to say that I can offer what I know has worked for me. And that's why I've been bold enough to share that video. That was at the Ministers Appreciation Ball that was organized by Reverend David Shosonya and his team, to whom I'm very grateful. And the award was actually to recognize the work that Tripartite Care does in impacting the Black church community in terms of our mental well-being. Right. So tonight, usually I feature this. This is a regular slide that is featured every single time we meet. And it's really because that's the basics of really change. Because I really think that one of the key important things that takes place in terms of managing our sustaining mental well-being in any aspect of our lives at all is that we change. It's a process of change. And that's we now know from neuroplasticity, for instance, we know that really there are changes taking place in our brains anyway. So we might as well shape those changes and be a contributor to the direction that we want those changes to go to. And how can we do that? One, tonight, I would encourage everyone to write things down by archiving. I would encourage everyone to take quick action in terms of acting on what you know to be true immediately that you leave this meeting, or even before you leave this meeting. Get an accountability partner, and that could be a friend, it could be a family. Sometimes you could actually be thinking, okay, I think I've now decided that I need to go for therapy, I need to go for counseling. Sometimes it's getting a coach or a mentor, but get somebody who's going to hold you accountable in a supportive way to what you need to do. And of course, the fourth A is in terms of assessment, measuring your progress. When are you going to look at things? And they usually say that the law of diminishing intent says that the earlier you embark on what you know to be true that you need to do, the less likely you are, or the less likely that you are not going to forget it, and that you are the more likely that you're going to action it and that you're going to succeed at doing it. But if you leave it longer, then it drags on and the chances of ever achieving it become slim. So in terms of implementation, looking at just reflecting on what needs to be done, I'll just ask you to take that in for a moment. Some new knowledge I'm going to be sharing in the course of this evening. How is that going to be applied to you? Think about, why would you need the new knowledge? How are you going to apply it? Who is going to help you to apply the new knowledge? And who may be an hindrance, or what may be an hindrance to applying new knowledge? Because sometimes we are so excited about new things. We acquire this new knowledge, but then we don't actually take it on board that there might be hindrances, things, maybe associations that might stand in our way. Or also, there might be people who might be able to support us. And I think the most important question on this slide is this: what's the simplest step I can take after today? It could even be this evening. It could be whilst this webinar is going on. That will change the course of the direction of my life in terms of the things I hear. I think that's really profound. And sometimes it's just the little things. They say that when people are flying airplanes, that just a little deviation, that if you just deviate a little, it might even be like a 5-degree deviation. If you continue on that path of deviation, by the time you arrive in 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you'll be surprised how far off you are from your target landing, just by a single degree of deviation. And so I'm hoping that that single degree of deviation will be in the right direction for us tonight, so that we can actually arrive where we want to be. So we're going to be looking at, during this seminar, we're going to look at what's self-esteem, what's self-image, what's self-worth, self-confidence. What does the science say about it, and what's the scriptural backing to it? Because I was quite mindful. I'm going to be really vulnerable here. When this theme was put out, one of the thoughts I had was, wow, everything is about self, 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 self. And I know that there will probably be religious people in the house, and I've said that I'm a pastor myself, who will say, oh, we should kill self, we should deal with self. Self does not apply in the kingdom. But I would like to remind us as well that the Bible also tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves. So there is self in the Bible. For people who might feel they are opposed to that theme of just looking at self, what does it mean to forgive oneself? What's the origin of poor self-esteem and poor self-worth? Where does that come from? We are not born with it. So where does it come from? How does it occur? Because if we don't know how it's happened, then we might not be able to deal with it. And how do you move on from there? Like I said that as a child, things that affected my own self-esteem. One of them was bullying at school. The other one was that I had severe bronchial asthma, which meant that some of the things that children of my age could do, I couldn't do then. I couldn't be running around on the playground. By the time I ran around the beat, I started breathing like I wasn't going to make it till the next day. So those things, at the time, I didn't realize how much they had shaped my life, how much they had sort of eaten into my confidence, and how much they had eaten into my self-worth. But I've been able to put them behind me. I've been able to sort of move on from them. And I'm hoping that these are some of the things I'm going to be talking about tonight. And of course, what's negative self-worth, as negative self-talk? How can you deal with it? And then we're going to share some tools. So really, that's really very this slide it's quite multicultural. It's got all the races represented there. And it's really to make us reflect on our relationship with ourselves. Many times we think about relationships with others. We think about relationships as a spouse, as a husband, as a wife, as a father, as a son, as an uncle and auntie, as a niece and a nephew, as a boss, as a subordinate, as a coach and mentor, mentee, or coachee, or pastor and follower, or whatever. However, many times we don't think about relationship with me. What's the relationship that Ayodele has with himself? And the thing about it is this, that it's the relationship that we have with ourselves that tends to drive all the other relationships in our lives, including our spiritual relationships. So sometimes the reason why we are loggerheads with other people or there's friction is because really inside there's inner turmoil. And because there's inner turmoil, it's difficult for there not to be outer turmoil. So all of these concepts are related to each other. There are different aspects of how we see ourselves, how we value ourselves. Value, I think, is one of the most important words that I'll be using tonight. Value. What value do I place on myself? And of course, the value we place on ourselves then determines how we treat ourselves and how we allow other people to treat us. I think that's really profound as well. The value we place on ourselves is what determines how we treat ourselves, and in consequence, by correlation, also determines how we allow other people to treat us. Right, so let's look at what is self-esteem, and you can see that emerald there, because that if people are thinking, oh, you are going to be seeing so many precious stones today, because I really believe it has a theme. It's world-class, it's precious, it's going no expenses bad. We are just really going all for it because we are precious people, and I really believe that the much of anatomy and physiology and psychology and biochemistry that I know makes me know that every single human being is a limited edition product. They're just one of a kind. So you'll be seeing so many things that sort of graphically describe how precious I feel the human being is. So self-esteem is our thoughts and our feelings about ourselves. It's our judgment. And many times people use self-esteem to mean self-worth, or self-worth to mean self-esteem. They are not the same thing. They are related concepts, but they differ a bit. So self-esteem is something, it's your judgment and it's part-time. So for instance, if after this event now, after this webinar, I get a lot of phone calls or I get a lot of text messages, obviously that's not the only reason why I feel good about myself, but I'll feel good about that performance. I feel, oh, that was good, that was worthwhile. I didn't waste people's time. They really benefited from it. So that's my judgment of that situation. Obviously, if I also feel the other way, that, oh, that wasn't worthwhile and all of that, that would also affect the way I feel about myself part-time. However, self-esteem is not a permanent thing. It's a transient thing. It's always about how you feel about the now, about it based on your judgment of your feelings and your feelings and thoughts for the time. It can become chronic, in which it follows a particular pattern, particularly if it's low, where one perpetually judges oneself and underrates oneself and deems one's performance every single time. Your judgment pattern is. And when that is done, when there's chronic poor self-esteem, it's clear association with emotional difficulties, clear association with depression, clear association with anxiety and toxic thinking, toxic stress, and also addiction. And it's like a two-way relationship. If somebody has poor self-esteem, eventually they are going to, if it's chronic, then eventually they are going to become they are going to have some sort of emotional difficulty or the other. And of course, also mental difficulties can also make people have poor self-esteem because of the hindrance and the stigma that's associated with mental difficulties. And that's why we need to continue to fight stigma and continue to make knowledge available where people feel able to thrive and to excel and be their best selves. So now, what is self-worth? You can see that that's a trunket full of precious stones, which is who I believe every human being is. So self-worth is a deeper thing. In fact, I believe that self-worth is what sort of calibrates our feeling about our self-esteem. Self-worth is a core, deep, fundamental belief about what my value is. I want to give an illustration. There was a story told, I think it was Jimmy Carter, who was president of the United States at the time. He was visiting one of the stations where they do the launching of the space rockets in America. And he met a cleaner, and he'd been interacting with everyone. And usually when he interacts with them, they say, "What do you do here?" They'll just say, "Oh, this is my job role. I do this, I do that." And he met this cleaner, and the cleaner said, "What do you do here?" He said, "My role here is to make sure that this place is clean and tidy so that I create a conducive atmosphere that is supportive enough for the astronauts to be able to do their work and for the launch to go effortlessly and for everyone to have a positive experience." That was somebody who knew their value. They could have said, "I'm just a cleaner and there's the astronauts are the ones running the show." No, he said, "I know my core value. I know why I'm here. It doesn't matter where I am on the rung of the ladder. There's something I'm contributing." And that core belief comes from, you can tell that it didn't just happen. There was somebody in his or her life very earlier on that programmed and wired them that way to know that they are people of value and that there's something they bring. So our core, deep, fundamental values about who we really think our value is, what we really believe we are bringing to the table, and whether we are worth it or not, is what our self-worth is about. It's about when you sum up yourself, you can see here that it's almost like the total sum of the trinket, total sum of this box full of precious things. What figure do you put under it? That's really what self-worth. You can see it's a little different from self-esteem. Self-worth is it's deeply ingrained, and it takes a while to be able to change it. But the good thing is it can shift. We don't have to live with a self-worth that is not serving our purpose and our standard and the reason why we are here. So it's about feeling worthy, feeling good, valuable, loved, or lovable, regardless of what's happening in our lives. Self-esteem is you judge the situation based on who you are with, based on what you've done. But self-worth is really about it's the way you sum up yourself, whether things are going right or not, whether you've achieved or not. You just know that you are worthy of love. You are good. You are good enough, and that it sort of spreads through all our relationships. There's sound research showing that when people have a good and healthy self-worth, it affects their self-esteem, and that it cuts through all the spheres of their lives. Relationships, and that is very linked with successful outcomes. So really, it's about core beliefs, and it's consistent over time. And it drives self-esteem, like I said, and of course, it will lead to confidence, and confidence will help us to be able to take on some things where other people will shy back and say, "Oh, I don't think I'm able to take that on." It also protects against stress and emotional problems. And one of the things I didn't say about tripart care is that tripart actually means three parts. It means that we are spirit, we have a soul, and we live in a body, and that those three parts of us are really important. They are all essential parts of us. So that means that in terms of the spiritual part, we are very clear about the fact that the Bible shapes what we believe. And so in that case, in terms of self-worth, I've got some scriptures there that we can, that I've also got some that I cited in the resource section of the, but that's some of the things that we can check out. So we've looked at self-esteem, we've looked at self-confidence, self-worth. So what is self-confidence? You can see this guy is really confident. You can see he's going for it, no matter what anybody thinks or wants to do. It's just on. He's signed up for life and is engaged and switched on. And that's the thing. So self-confidence is really about our belief in our abilities to be able to deliver, our abilities to do something. And I know some people might also find that uncomfortable. We shouldn't believe in ourselves. I really don't think that aligns with faith. I think that we're expected not to be proud, but we are also not expected to masquerade low self-worth and poor self-confidence in what we describe as humility. It's important that we know our values, we know what we've got inside of us, we know what we need, what we are equipped and able to do, and to stand up and say that this is what I can do. I don't think there should be any fear in that, or any holding back. So it's really trusting our judgment, being able to know that this is something I can take on and I'm going to take it on. It's also the courage to take on tasks, to follow those beliefs with action, and that will mean sometimes taking us out of our comfort zones. But the reality is that we know that nobody ever grows in their comfort zones. We know that nobody ever excels in their comfort zones. We know that nobody ever does anything meaningful beyond themselves. Nobody ever does anything that lasts for legacy. Nobody ever does anything that is transformational, except they go out of their comfort zones. And there's a degree of confidence that is required. And I've said there that it's not perfection. It's not about being perfect, because there's nobody who is perfect all of the time, who is 100% of the times. They are human. If there's anybody like that, please introduce me to them. I want to have dinner with them tonight, because there are several things they can teach me that I don't know yet. So I think it's important that it's not perfection, because perfection, being a perfectionist, can actually be an hindrance. It could actually begin to create poor self-worth and poor self-esteem as well, because if you think you don't get it 101% right 101% of the times, then it can begin to create trouble. And just in terms of self-confidence, I said earlier that in church that I lead a project, that I lead one of the community projects. And sometimes when I reflect on that, I laugh now, because I got onto that project team about 11 years ago. At the time, I just joined the branch of the church that I go to now. And we were going to, so there was a need to, the person who was leading on that project was leaving, and there was a need for somebody to take over. And project management is certainly not my strong suit, and I knew that, but there was a need, and I just thought there is a need. I've been asked to step in, and which I did. It was a steep learning curve, 2, 3, 4 years of really, but after a while, I began to enjoy it. And now, when I think about the impact that we make every Christmas, or the impact that we make on the community, the relationships we've been able to build, even with the statutory organizations, with the council and all of that, I'm pleased that I took that chance, despite the fact that even at the time, I wasn't like, the confidence was not, it wasn't top ranking, because at the time, project management was not something that I thought I could do. So now we've moved on from self-esteem to self-confidence to self-worth. Now let's look at self-love. And I know that it might also get under the skin of people who may not feel comfortable with it, but I've just put there that the bottom of that slide shows me why it's important that we love ourselves. And self-love is about accepting that this is having an affection for yourself. You know, there are people literally, and if you're like that, I'm not blaming you or anything. I'm just saying that it's something to reflect on. Sometimes I meet people who don't love themselves, and they will actually say, I don't like myself. I don't love myself. I'm always looking at my flaws. I'm always looking at my mistakes. I don't like who I am or who. But it's important that we embrace the person, because every person has come with their strengths, their weaknesses. Yes, while we embrace the strength, we might be working on the weaknesses, but to say I don't love myself, that's throwing away the water with the baby with the bath water. And that sometimes happens. And it can create very serious problems. So it's about prioritizing our emotional needs. It's about knowing that I matter just like every other person. It's about having the confidence to be able to say no when we need to. It's about putting boundaries in our lives. It's about prioritizing rest, because we value the person that I am. And like I said, for people who might be uncomfortable with this self-love thing, people think, well, self-love, it doesn't align with Bible. I don't share that. I don't share that position. And I don't think science aligns with it either. Okay. So a very important thing again is really about knowing ourselves. And that's an exercise I'm going to challenge you to do today. After tonight, when you have your spare time, what are you bringing to the table? Because you need to know what you are bringing to the table. You know, sometimes when you're in conversation with people, sometimes I'm in coaching conversations with coaches, and we begin to have conversations, and suddenly the penny drops for them, because we begin to unpack the genius that they are, the extremely talented, skilled people that they are. And as they begin to put pen to paper, as that reflective process starts, they begin to see themselves differently. Because the reality is that sometimes we take ourselves for granted. Sometimes the person who takes us for granted the most is the person that we're looking at in the mirror. So it's about what abilities have I got, what talents have I got, and for those, I'm just putting this out there that for tonight after this meeting, I'm going to be posting a very detailed, quite a detailed list of talents, of skills, cognitive abilities, things that we special aptitudes, technical skills that we very often take for granted. I'm going to be posting it on the WhatsApp group. And for those who might want to join the WhatsApp group as well, there's going to be a QR code at the end of it. So that would be a welcome gift for people who are just joining. It's quite a robust list, because when you look at that list and you begin to tick off the boxes, you actually begin to gain a knowledge about yourself and see that maybe I'm more loaded and maybe there's more to me than I really feel. And every time I've done an exercise like that, that's why I challenge people to update their CVs every 6 monthly interval. Actually, I don't update my CV every 6 monthly interval. What I do now is that every single day when there's an achievement, if it's a week, I write it. I keep it there, because by the time it's a year on, by the time it's 6 months on, you might have forgotten. And something so profound would have gone unnoticed. It happens all the time. It happens when I'm in supervision with my resident doctors as well, where I always encourage them, write your achievements down. Keep it. It's not about being pompous or proud. It's about really understanding what you're bringing to the table, because it's going to help you to appreciate your worth, and it's also going to help you to be able to ask for what belongs to you. So that free inventory I'm going to post on the on the WhatsApp group. I'm going to post it on both of the WhatsApp groups. I'll talk about the WhatsApp groups when we at the end of the meeting. So you can see that guy is quite determined and is looking at the mirror, and you can see he's ready to go. He's not sparing anything. He's putting all effort into it. You can see his face on the other side, and he's looking at himself in the mirror. And that's about self-efficacy. They believe that we can accomplish things, that we have agency. One of the things that is commonly associated with poor self-esteem, poor self-worth, is that people with poor self-esteem and poor self-worth, and I'm very clear here that I'm not blaming anyone for that. I've been there. What I'm saying is that it does happen, but we shouldn't stay there. But what's been noticed with people with poor self-worth or poor self-esteem is the lack of agency. Most people feel that life is happening to them. I don't. It's almost like every other person, the government controls my family, everything else, all the agencies, external agencies around me are the ones that are controlling where my life is going. So there's lack of agency, lack of feeling that I'm in the driver's seat and I can drive this car where I can monitor and drive direction. So self-efficacy is about believing that I can actually accomplish things. I can put in effort and get results. I can develop a set of behaviors that drive the car of my life towards the specific outcomes that I desire. And it will influence my ability to even seize opportunities. Do you know that sometimes people miss lifetime opportunities because they are not confident? And people who are less qualified, people are less able, people are less experienced will go on there and put themselves forward. And when it comes to opportunities, it's for the takers. I see it happen all of the time. All of the time. When people, because of low self-worth, low self-esteem, poor self-confidence, don't have that self-efficacy to sign up for opportunities that could be transformational, that could really change the direction and the trajectory of life. And finally, we talk about self-compassion, and very closely linked to that is self-forgiveness. Self-compassion is about treating yourself kindly when things don't go according to plan. The reality is that it's impossible for anyone, no matter what faith you belong to say that 100% of the times things will go 100% to the plan. That's not life. It's not, life doesn't work like that. And it's being able to remember at certain times. Self-compassion is being able to step back and say, by putting my best into that, I'm going to be kind to myself. It's a learning curve. It's a learning process. I mean, for instance, one of the things I decided to do to myself today in running this webinar is to be kind to myself and compassionate to myself in terms of getting to the grips of what operating webinars. Yes, I did the practice. I practiced and saw how it was going to run, but I also made up my mind that I was still going to be kind to myself and not throw myself under the bus if there are itches or glitches. And it's important for us to be like that, to reflect on our self-talk when we miss the mark. You know, I usually joke, but it's true. Sometimes when my self-talk is negative, it's not, to be honest, really. I think a few weeks ago, I caught myself thinking, oh, wow. And I really hope that people are not going to think this is arrogant, but I'm being vulnerable and transparent here. I caught myself thinking, oh, wow, Ayodele, you've come a long, long way in terms of my self-talk. Because sometimes when that ugly, negative, detrimental self-talk still comes in, I can then answer back and say, don't talk to me like that. I am a prince. And that sort of just changes the course of everything. Rather than this negative self-talk dragging me down with it, when I assert myself that actually you don't talk to a prince like that, and I'm a prince, things change. Because one, I remind myself that really the fact that I failed this particular thing, or the fact that I've not got this one right, does not mean I'm a failure. There's a difference between failing a particular thing and being a failure. One of them is a situation, one of them is a personality, one of them is personified. There's a difference between the two. So it's about really being aware of what's going on in our self-talk and challenging those things. So self-compassion is about when things don't go right, how kind am I to myself? How would I have behaved to somebody that I love and cherish if I was the one if they were the ones that it was happening to? It's about recognizing that self-compassion is about, yes, sometimes it's human to miss the mark. It's human to mess up. But then we live to fight another day. We live to return, and that it's a learning process. I'm not broken because I broke something. So these are the ways, this is a good way to see all those layers of just putting it all together. Like I said, it's about this is nothing external. It's about how we are relating with ourselves. It's about our inner layers of our inner relationship. Self-worth is the foundation, like I said. It's really the bedrock. And self-worth is shaped by a lot of things that we're going to come to very shortly. Self-esteem is how we evaluate ourselves on top of that foundation. So, and self-esteem does vary, like I said. Sometimes it's chronic. If self-worth is down and low, sometimes self-esteem could also be chronically low. It's like you are looking at the world through tinted glass. What you're going to see is going to be tinted. And that's the way it is, really. It doesn't mean that the world is tinted, but because one is looking through tinted glass, one sees tinted. Self-confidence is being able to move forward in the worth and the esteem that one has put on oneself. And self-love, as we said, is accepting, despite when you move forward, there'll still be ups and downs. The ups, we celebrate, we punch the hair. The downs, one will take it by the chin and say, I'm coming back again. This is a learning process. I've learned one way not to do it. And of course, compassion is treating yourself treating yourself well when things go wrong. Love is accepting and being warm towards self and not loathing the self. And then compassion is about treating oneself well with care. So where does poor self-worth and self-esteem come from? Childhood trauma. I know people think that is this not berated? Is this not is this not overrated? But it's not really, because it's when we are children, and we are getting into the psychology of it now, that it's when we are children that we form views about ourselves, about others, and about the world around us. It's the experiences that we have, it's the exposures that we have, it's the education that we have. All of those things shape our self-worth. And particularly the way we are treated by our major caregivers. So if you are a neglectful parent, you tend to feel that your needs don't matter. If you are a harsh parent, you tend to think that you'll be penalized for speaking up and being assertive. If you have a parent who treated you like an appendage, like you are a necessary burden, maybe they didn't even say it, but in their actions, then you might grow up feeling that you are not of worth and that really you are unlovable. Do you know that we now know that a lot of children whose parents broke up when they were young blame themselves for it? The narrative that child has is that the reason why dad and mom went their separate ways was because there was something I did or didn't do. I wasn't good enough. And I'm sure that I've shared this experience with on some of these calls before, where we had this, where I saw a very high-flying person who was now in their, going towards, they were latter part of their 50s. And for about 54 years or so, or thereabout, they all held themselves responsible that they could not save the life of their elder sister, who was 2 years older than them and died when they were 7 years old or so. And these things are reality, and that has docked this person of their lives. In fact, until they came into that consultation room that day and exposed it and told me, they had never told anyone in their lives, and they had borne that burden. They looked like they were excelling, they looked like they were acing it in the boardroom. But the reason why they were doing all that was because it was like an atonement. It was trying to make it right. So critical parenting, and I know there are parents on this call, there are grandparents on this call. I'm hoping that some of these things that we are listening to will help us in our parenting journey in the way realizing that we're actually writing the templates of the mental health, of the self-worth, of the self-compassion of our children and our grandchildren, of the people who are in charge of us. The good thing is that we also do know in science, for instance, that even if somebody has a critical parent, hopefully the parent can listen to things like this and begin to amend their ways. But if there's an adult in their life who is able to compensate and who is able to celebrate them and help them to find their treasures, even in that rubble, that can also be transformational for that child. So really, it's about one of the other things that we do know in terms of origin of poor self-esteem particularly is comparison, unhealthy comparison, and social media doesn't help. Social media is not a bad thing, by the way, it's the way you use it. In the last 2 years or so, I've grown a lot professionally in my social media contacts in terms of even the richness that social media has brought into my life in terms of my competence across board is unimaginable. So it's the way we use it. But we need to be aware that sometimes we are comparing our everyday life with people's photoshopped, doctored photos. So people are putting their best foot forward and we're comparing it with our own normal everyday life. And we're thinking, oh, I don't measure up. Because all of that is doctored, because people think and think and think before they put anything on social media. Most people do. And sometimes you can't always take everything as surface value. So there's the fallacy of perfection so that can cause, and it's been known to be associated with lots of emotional difficulties, particularly among young ladies and young men. Negative core beliefs can also, and those negative core beliefs are usually the voice of a parent or a voice of somebody, even it could be the voice of a teacher, voice of somebody or a grandparent, voice of somebody who was important in our lives, particularly at some point in our journeys. And we might still be hearing those voices that makes us feel unlovable or underachiever. And of course, mental health conditions, and I said earlier that mental health conditions could either cause low self-esteem and low self-worth, or low self-esteem and low self-worth could also eventually result into mental difficulties. So what are the features? What are the things that make us know that maybe I need to look further? Self-loathing, that's been said. People-pleasing, when we feel that all the time we have to say yes to everybody, every demand has to be yes. When our value comes from what other people say, but we don't have a means of validating ourselves within ourselves, that actually I was created good. There's no pride in it, but there's no pride in that. To look at myself and say, actually, I'm a masterpiece. There are things, there are talents, there are skills, there are aptitudes that I've got, and I'm one of a kind. If all our validation, when people don't think we are good, then we think we are bad. It's only when people think that we are good, then it might be that there is a problem with self-worth and self-esteem. When we are always second-guessing ourselves, we have a decision to make. We ask 2,000 people to input, and then at the end of the day, we are so confused, we don't know which one to turn to. Serial relationship breakups, morbid aversion to risk or novelty. Anything new or risky, we don't try because we don't want to. We would only play it safe. We only take on things that feel like we are going to ace it. We are going to be good at it. Any other thing, we are not going to try. Addictive behaviors, identity crisis, just not really being sure of who we are, and then subjugating our needs to the needs of other people, and the need to perpetually compare ourselves with other people, or lacking in boundaries. So just before we go on to the next steps, I wanted to just read out a few things about some of the statistics that is associated with some research statistics that is associated with low self-esteem. It says low self-esteem is linked to violence, school dropouts, school dropout rates, teenage pregnancies, suicide, and low academic achievements. And all of this for I know that there are a number of my colleagues in the house. I'm quite happy to provide all these references if anyone is interested. It says about 44% of girls and 15% of boys in high school are attempting to lose weight, according to the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse. Think about that. 44% of girls and 15% of boys in high school are attempting to lose weight. 7 in 10 girls believe that they are not good enough or don't measure up in some way. 70%. So we can see where people talk about mental crisis, global mental crisis. We can see where it's coming from. It doesn't just happen overnight. If we are looking at these statistics, the vast majority, 81% of 10-year-old girls are afraid of being fat. And it's not just, this is not, it's not just about ladies. I've also said about young men as well. And this is really profound. Absent fathers, poverty, a low quality home environment have a negative impact on self-esteem. So being absent as a father, poor quality home environment, and poverty are things, and that's why social mobility is something I support, because I think the benefits are just far beyond people moving up the social ladder. I think the benefits are profound in terms of changing trajectory of people's life, and then generational impact as well. We now know from trauma studies that people say that the effect of trauma is born up to 14 generations. Not 4, but 14 generations for the effect of trauma, where people are still bearing the legacy of where that's still showing up in their genetic makeup. So what do we also know about people who have a healthy self-esteem? What are the benefits of healthy self-esteem? They are less critical of themselves, but also of others. Do you know that many times when we are critical of other people, it's actually we are projecting that guilt and criticism of ourselves to them. So many times it's a projection because we are not happy, we are not comfortable with who we are. We don't want other people to be comfortable with who they are. People who have a healthy self-esteem are better able to handle stress and avoid unhealthy side effects of stress. They are less likely to succumb to peer pressure. They are less likely to succumb to addictions, addictive behavior. They are more assertive and able to express their needs. They are more confident in their ability to make good decisions, and they are more resilient and more likely to bounce back after they face disappointment or adversity. So that's just thinking about, just looking at about self-esteem and about really the benefits of it. So where do we go from here? I think the first thing, in terms of what's the next step, perhaps there are people who are listening to me and thinking, or who are part of this webinar and thinking, actually, it looks like some of this is describing my life. Where do I go from here? How do I sort of get rid? How do I begin to appreciate the person of worth that I am? How does my self-worth improve? How does my self-esteem improve? Actually, the thing is to start from the basics. I know it looks this graphic looks very graphical, and that's really where it all started for each one of us here. This is the image of where it all started for us. This is where conception took place. And the reason why I've put this up there is this. You see the guys that look like tadpoles in gray color, trying to move in forcefully towards the purple lady. Those guys, about 500 million of them took part in that race. And you were the one that won the race. So you are 1 in 5 million in the race. Now, the pink lady or purple lady as well, in that particular month, there were about 15 of them or 20 of them that started the race in that particular month. And she was the one that won. Now, let's think about the odds. 1 in 500 million. 1 in 20. When we add those odds together, it will make us appreciate the fact that science is even supporting the fact that we didn't just happen here. we've won races. In fact, maybe one of the greatest races of our lives before we even knew it, before we showed up. A lot of people don't know that 20% of pregnancies are spontaneously aborted. So you are part of that 80% that made it through. I used to joke after I finished gynecology obstetrics at Obafemi Awolowo University. I think, okay, actually, I did my obstetrics at Wesley Guild Hospital in Elisha. And I used to joke, I said, oh, when women have babies and they say, oh, thank God for you, Vade, thank God for your safe arrival. I used to wonder, what's the big deal? A woman gets pregnant and she has a baby. But then when I did pediatrics, did neonatology, saw how many babies were born and didn't quite make it out of hospital, saw how many women lost pregnancies, saw how many women went through labor and didn't have living babies, I began to appreciate the fact that actually a living baby is a miracle. And they've gone through a lot of and I think it's those type of things, those type of hardcore facts that help us to begin to see who we really are and to begin to appreciate, to contend, to challenge those thoughts that really don't align. I'm quite aware of time, so I'm going to try and speed things up. So basics of really reshaping our self-worth. Coming to grips with our self-esteem and developing self-confidence. Starting small. We don't start running the marathon when we haven't exercised in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. We start with something achievable. Maybe we first start going to the gym. Maybe we even start doing home exercises, and then we build up like that. And that's the same way. And the reason why I've put this structure, which I quite like using, is that's the structure in the brain. That's the structure of the nerve cells in the brain and the way they are wired together and interwoven. And it's really about changing the networks in those parts of our brain. And it starts with small, consistent action. Sometimes when we want to change the way we feel about ourselves, we do one massive action for one day, and then we forget about it for months. But it's really about small, slow, consistent steps that does the rewiring. It's something that we do over and over and over and over again. And our thinking habits, people, I say this quite often as well. People say it takes 21 days to change a habit. That's not founded in science. It's not one of the genuine and reliable, valid piece of research that's been done is from the University College London. I think it's McNally. And what they found was that it takes between 18 and 265 days to form a habit, depending on the complexity of it. And that will also include thinking habits, because self-worth at the end of the day is about thinking. It's about the way we see ourselves. It's about the way we value who we are. So keep one promise to yourself daily. Okay, every day I'm going to write in my journal. Every day I'm going to read 2 verses of a book. Every day I'm going to do a particular thing. Every day I'm going to send a text message to quote. Just something simple. Something simple. And as we keep that promise to ourselves, it builds up, it builds up, it builds up. Try something you've been avoiding. That's also a way to do that. Something that you've felt, oh, it's catastrophic, I'm not going to try it. Celebrate progress, not perfection. We live in a perfectionist world where everything has to be picture perfect, everything has to be dotted. I'm not supporting mediocrity, and I hope that I don't project it. It's important. Excellence is important to me, but I'm saying that if we are so obsessed with perfection that we are not enjoying the journey, and when it's not perfect, then it makes us feel really under the weather. Then that might be damaging. It might be more damaging than enhancing. So this verse is from the Kintsugi Japanese concept of when things are broken, when pots are broken, they are mended in such a way that they then use gold threads to hold them together. the import of that is that every kintsugi pot is unique. You won't get two kintsugi pots that are the same. The reason being that when a pot breaks or a ceramic breaks, there's no way you can guarantee that the way, even if it's the same cup, you bring this cup, you break it, and then you bring another one of this type, exactly the same dimensions, and you break it. They are not going to break in the same places. They are not going to have the same number of fragments. And because they don't have the same number of fragments and they don't break in the same places, it automatically means that when they're going to be put together again, that gold lining that identifies each of them is going to be different. And that's the kintsugi concept. And that's the way, that's a mental health approach. It should be a mental health approach towards setbacks as well, towards failures, towards things that are in there. Some of the people who are LinkedIn friends or LinkedIn, what do they call them on LinkedIn now? LinkedIn connections will know that I think two days ago or so, I used this particular post to share a post about failing my second year medical school exams a few months ago, and how that changed the course of my life. How it was a failure, it stung, it was very hard hit. It was the first time I was experiencing failure in my life, but it changed the trajectory of my life in a positive way because there's what is called post-traumatic growth. Sometimes we talk about post-traumatic stress, we emphasize the stress, but how about the growth that comes after as a result of that stress? So really, this is because people might be wondering, what's this pot? What has it got to do with the slide? So in terms of really building our self-worth, building self-confidence, it comes with identifying awareness. Where does this come from? Why do I feel about myself this way? Why do I feel lower than every other person? Why do I feel I don't measure up? Whose voice from my past? A parent, a teacher, a bullying boss, or even a sibling, a bullying sibling, or even maybe even a neighbor, whose voice do I still hear in my negative self-talk? And then we begin to acknowledge, when we are able to come to terms with that and really begin to see where it's coming from, then we can begin to acknowledge our true what in terms of finding inner validation. One of the things that I've talked about CVs, I've talked about mentors, I've talked about coaches, but also even doing personality tests. I can't emphasize personality tests enough. And TASA is about looking at our technical skills, looking about our abilities, our aptitudes, and our special skills. That's what TASA is about. And I've said that I'm going to be sharing quite an inventory on the WhatsApp group when we finish tonight. So, and then when we then acknowledge our true worth, you see, everyone will be at a different part of their journey. And there are people who might not need this, who are just needing to pass it on to somebody. But it's like going to a buffet dinner and you just pick what interests you, you pick what's relevant to you. So there will be a lot of things in the next few slides, but it's about what really what's relevant, what resonates with you, what's important to you. I'm just checking that we're all still on the same page. Okay, right. Okay, so, and then identifying negative thinking styles. Journaling does help us to do that. Sometimes we can ask friends and family members to hold us accountable because they might be the best people to actually tell us if there's a way, if we never see any good in ourselves or that sort of thing. We might be able to get a trusted friend, a trusted family member to actually help us to call us out and in a loving way every time we display that. Challenging negative thinking patterns. So what's the evidence behind this thinking? Because many times when we begin to strip negative thinking patterns to their bare bones, we actually find out that there's no evidence, and counteracting them with affirmations. And people know that my affirmations, I'm not shy about the fact that my affirmations and what I meditate on is really from scriptures. That's been transformational for me. And there's quite a lot of research now supporting the fact that that meditation does actually help with neuroplasticity, but also meditation helps with depression, with anxiety, and with really helping us to deal with our mental well-being. So appraise the negative self-beliefs. What's the evidence? What will you tell a family member if you loved them and they told you that about themselves? And begin to gather truths. Begin to catch yourself doing brilliant things. Begin to catch yourself doing noble things and record them and pay attention to them. Like I said a few weeks ago, I thought, oh wow, you've come quite some way. So what are the actions we need to take in terms of developing ourselves as well? Yes, sometimes inner validation comes when we begin to take care of the external things. Inner validation comes because the external things have also been taken care of. It might be new knowledge, it might be new skills, it might be etiquette classes. In fact, by the way, on the resource slide, there's an etiquette school that I've attended their events, and I would, without reservation, recommend. So etiquette classes, because you see, the reality is that sometimes we get into settings where we don't feel we measure up because we've not been trained for those places, and that can affect our self-esteem. But that's the reason why we need to train ourselves. We need to go on courses. We need to do if need be elocution classes. It's because we know that we are building ourselves for world class. We're investing into ourselves. Personal branding, branding, coaching, all of those things. And that includes therapy, counseling as well, volunteering, doing something for somebody who can say thank you. All of those things are known to really improve the way we feel about ourselves. Allowing self-forgiveness. For people who might be struggling with forgiveness, writing it down and sometimes writing that I've forgiven myself. That's now in the past and I'm moving on. Sometimes it's also, I'm not making a rule of this, but sometimes it's also about saying it to ourselves, but saying it to somebody that can be trusted and saying, this is now in my past and I forgive myself and I'm not allowing this to hold me back again. Self-compassion. We've talked about different things, listening to our self-talk, stop internalizing mistakes as our image. You know that people say, I'm a late comer, I always come late. Oh, yeah. Those are things I don't say about myself again, because really we are reinforcing the message to ourselves when we say things like that. And what tends to happen is the brain will deliver what we've told it to deliver. The brain will deliver what we ask it to do. So separating events from our image. The fact that I failed an exam does not make me a failure. And to be honest, in my life, as you are looking at me, I failed some I've failed some exams in my life. All right. Separate identity from roles. And just a quick whisk through this, recovery from romantic breakdowns or breakups or toxic relationships. A lot of it we've talked about already, but one of them is also prioritizing self-care, getting support. And sometimes burning bridges, sometimes really separating ourselves geographically. There are people who are the people that get the best out of you. Who are the people that when you are with them, I mean, there are some people that when I really want to get the best out of myself, I hang around them because I know when I'm in conversation with them, the best of me comes out. We need to begin to study those people as well and deliberately associate with them. And these are all scientific things. They are not like things that people just pluck out of somewhere. There's research showing all of these things. So I think that's about the last slide, and I'm just going to whisk through what we've got coming up for the rest of the year. We usually meet last Thursday of the month, and those are the themes that we'll be taking on. So it's going to be post-traumatic stress disorder next, and then students and young people's mental health, September being the month that people return to school. Young people start their A-levels, they start their GCSE year, they go to university and all of that. So emotional intelligence, and that's the calendar for 2026 up until May as well. I'm looking forward to trauma-informed care and also the act of self-care. There are a number of things we are still cooking: emotional intelligence for courses for engaged and married couples, church charity leaders, mental training. That's been taking place, and we've had 2 so far, and there is more on the way. We've got a book club, 3rd Thursday of the month. The book club has been running and is still going strong. The book that we are currently looking at is Bessel van der Kolk's book, which is The Body Keeps the Score. It's really about understanding trauma. So those are part of the things that Tripart Care does, really keynotes, public speaking. I'm up for it. Not just myself, there are members of our team as well who can. So even if I can speak, most likely there'll be somebody in the team who can speak and who are as eminently able to speak. And of course, we offer mental health training to churches, to groups. So that's the generic WhatsApp group. Like I say, if you join today, you will have the benefit of getting the technical aptitude, skills, and inventory. So that's a good reason to consider joining. And that's what the group is really about. It's a safe, sensitive space. We signpost to people we signpost people to help, mental health help. And we discuss mental health in a bite-sized way. And then we've also got the leaders group. The leaders group is for really leaders. All the hands that are raised, I'm aware of them, and I'll come back to you. So that's for leaders as well. So if you're a leader in any realm, it could be in the secular, it could be in the spiritual, it could be a charity. That's a group that you might want to join. Just take the photo of it. And after the meeting, I would accept people onto the group. And that's the book club, meets Thursday, and third Thursday of the month is led by Dr. Awolaron, and she's doing a brilliant job of that. So The Body Keeps the Score, like I say. And that's our Instagram page. So please like our Instagram page, join us on Instagram, follow us. Really, if you start following, you will see what I'm talking about. Really some very brilliant content. Some of the things that we talked about today, we've already been sensitizing people. And that's the YouTube channel as well. Those are my Facebook and LinkedIn contact. I'm mostly on LinkedIn these days. That's another strategic move, actually. And that's the email address for speaking engagements or anything like that. That's our email address. And that's okay, questions and answer. So those are resources, actually, and then we'll come back to the Q&A. So some of the resources I mentioned earlier are there. That's the etiquette school I was talking about, the schoolofetiquette.com. 16personalities.com is really about developing self-knowledge, being confident in who we are. The other book that I didn't put on here is Discover Your Strength Now. Discover Your Strength Now by Marcus Buckingham, as in Buckingham Palace. Marcus Buckingham, as in Marcus, Marcus Buckingham. Really brilliant book. And for the scriptural references that I spoke about, those are the scriptural resources on self-worth. Philippians 2:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That's about ability. 1 John 3:1 is about behold what manner of love the Father has given unto us. That's about loving, being aware that we are loved, we belong, and we are approved. 2 Corinthians 3:4-6 is about sufficiency. My sufficiency is of God. And that particular one was a transformational one for me. My book, Footprints of Giants, will never have seen the light of day but for that scripture. Because just minutes before I was going to send the manuscript to the publisher, I nearly deleted it because at the time I thought it wasn't good enough. This was about 12 years ago. So all of those anyway. So I'm just going to stop sharing now and start looking at the charts. Thank you all for staying the course with us. And if there is any questions, any comments, I'm going to look as well to see, and my panel members will also be